Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Hard Things Podcast. This is your host, Blaine Burgess, and it is Thursday, April 17th. I am officially done with this current trimester at Parker University, so you're going to find me very, very happy today. Just feeling accomplished. There's a lot of work still to be done, but I'm for sure going to enjoy this moment, bring in this one, and when I say this one, I mean this trimester to a close. It's also cause for celebration because it is the end of the science trimesters, meaning I'm getting into more clinical reasoning and thinking, and adjusting kind of more in line with, what a chiropractor does every day. So with each passing trimester, I transform myself more and more into a doctor, and I feel it happening. So yeah, a lot of good feels today. And also because I finished all my schoolwork, I now have nothing to do except for what I want to do. And so the podcast immediately kind of comes to the front of the line, at least top three maybe, in terms of importance and things that I want to keep doing. So episode 53, first one of my second year of podcasting, sophomore season. I'm going to be talking about Paradoxical Trinity. And you might be thinking, what the fuck are you talking about? You would be correct to have that thought. It's a little bit weird, but there's a book I started, a really good friend of mine got for me. Gosh, it has to have been a decade ago, and I'm big on, I have books that I love that I just never read, and something about not reading them just gives you the comfort that you're going to have something to do someday. I don't know. It's a weird thing that people do. They buy books and they don't read them. But this year, I think I've read more just by volume and by total number of covers that I've gone, end to end, than maybe I've ever read in my entire life. And I think that's a good sign for my brain. If you know the history of my brain, it's been through a lot and it's recovered. And might be to a point where, reading for not only for enjoyment but also for utility is fun. So this book is actually by a Yale professor. It's called On Grand Strategy. It's named after a class they teach at Yale, and kind of co-author with the Naval War College, which is a place where I had a professor from there. Really enjoyed that class at Harvard and got to visit the Naval War College in Rhode Island. So the book that I've always wanted to read, I actually read it. I read 8 or 9 chapters, and just didn't make it quite towards the end. And I don't know what it was that stopped me. I think when I was reading it, it might have been like a COVID time-ish, or kind of when I was on my way to Austin, a little bit chaotic, and couldn't quite finish. I have a couple books on my shelf that have bookmarks in them. But anyways, there's a chapter where the author is talking about another famous author, and he mentions Paradoxical Trinity. And I think it's really interesting because I've talked about a lot of dichotomies in life. When you sense tension, it's easy to think that it might be between two ideas, two things, two people. Dichotomy meaning two. And that's easy to see. But a lot of dichotomies, if you look back at them again, there's a third thing. And that's where you get into the paradoxical trinity. So paradox, by definition, seemingly absurd or self-contradictory statement that when investigated or explained may prove to be well-founded or true. it's basically, the way I think about it is, it's just the mysteries of life. Um, the balance of and tension of opposites. It exists because otherwise one side would just win, and that's just how it would be, and we probably would cease to exist. I think the tension is the reason that we're here. But if you experience the tension of life without really understanding what's happening, who's doing it, why, you can tend to take it personally. You can tend to take it too seriously. As with anything, like, there's a balance to everything. So even a balance in the way that you relate to the balance, it just gets deeper and deeper. You can talk about Inception and all the crazy things. There's levels and layers, and it can all be a little bit overwhelming. I think a lot of people right now dealing with mental health issues feel that way. I know I've felt that way in the past, but the more that I embrace good, solid technical models and also leave space for what's not completely understood, the balance between those two, the happier I get. The more I understand and accept the way that life is, and the more courage I get to just operate within that and just do my best, and the more grace I give myself when I fail, and the more motivated I am to learn from that failure to try and help in the future. So that process can be a little bit exhausting, but it doesn't have to be. It really is all about your attitude and your physical body chemistry, and just your approach to all that. And there is a healthy way to do it. I believe that to a T. And while you have the ability to be physically healthy, the only way to maximize life is to make yourself mentally healthy too. So physical and mental and spiritual, talk about a paradoxical trinity. There's one right there. So speaking about the physical too, one thing I noticed about in my anatomy classes, there's a lot of triangles in the body. As most recently, we studied the femoral triangle. It's right on the front of your thigh. It's a place where your femoral artery, vein, and nerve kind of run through and are kind of exposed. If you were trying to stab someone and really affect them, that's a place to do it. I'm not trying to tell anyone how to hurt someone, but holy cow, very vulnerable spot. Why is it shaped like a triangle? I don't know, but triangle shapes show up everywhere in the body, especially the sacrum, for example, and the sacrum being that kind of wedge triangle shape, is very strong. Triangle in terms of geometry and architecture is a very strong, very, very strong structure. And I think that's why paradoxical trinities are so confounding, because they are so strong, and so confounding, seem very absurd, but also make so much sense at the same time. And so I touched on the physical. As with the triangle, there's going to be kind of 3 parts to today. The last one's going to be the longest, because I'm the most excited about that one. The middle one, I'm currently in the process of reading books by several former Ohio State football coaches. This is a little bit of a pivot, but hear me out. Paradoxical Trinity. So we have Jim Tressel, who, when I was a kid, 2002, I was 12 years old, Ohio State won a national championship. Super cool. Great memories for me. I just remember that with vivid clarity. I was at a friend's house. We were playing video games. Came out, watched the game a little bit. They won. We were pumped. And that was it. So really, the way that national championship differed from the one in 2014 that point I was 24. It's nearly over a decade later, graduating from Harvard, almost. No, actually, I was graduated. Urban Meyer took the Buckeyes to the first college football playoff and beat Alabama. Zeke Elliott ran wild on them. And then we won the championship game easy. And kind of started off a new era of college athletics. Super fun. Then this year, most recently, again, like about another 10 years later, we have Ryan Day in the expanded college football playoff, wins 4 games to go the distance and bring Natty back to Columbus. I'm going to do another episode on this specifically soon, but one thing I thought about a lot recently in learning more about Nick Saban, learning more about guys like Lee Corso, who's retiring from College Game Day, thinking about my own coaches, football or even baseball or otherwise, even my own dad being my wrestling coach. I think a lot about coaches, and you see Ohio State, they're winning the national championship 3 different times. On the surface, 2 of those were playoff wins. One of them was just a straight up, undefeated season kind of deal, voted on by the press. And so varying levels of difficulty. And you also look at the character and like who the coaches are and stories about them. Not saying Jim Tressel's a perfect guy, but he's kind of a Boy Scout. And the book that he wrote really drives that home. Very much Boy Scout vibe, but also very masculine and very centered and overall positive. And he did a lot of great things for Ohio State. Kind of left on a sour note, though, like let some of the discipline fall by the wayside. And when your kind of perfect Boy Scout image gets shrouded by one thing, you kind of have less, latitude for that kind of thing. On the other side, you have Urban Meyer, who was at Florida, kind of had some controversial things happen there, comes to Ohio State. Ohio State just wants to win. Well, we did that. But then he goes to the NFL, and you hear a lot of negative stories about he's kicking players, he's putting people down. He's kind of more of a negative guy, leadership through fear versus leadership through love, or kind of what I see Jim Tressel promoting in his book. At first look, because I have both Urban Meyer and Jim Tressel's books, I was thinking about comparing them kind of head to head. And then, like, out of nowhere, it was just complete blind spot for me. I completely forgot that Ryan Day just won the national championship this year with Ohio State. There's a third thing, a kind of an invisible, hiding in plain sight third thing. And because he's still the coach, maybe I wasn't thinking of him in the context of Jim and Urban yet, because his story is not quite written. But nonetheless, there's a third thing in there. There's a third championship and kind of another piece of the puzzle that I was, again, either willfully or accidentally ignoring. I'm not sure. It just dawned on me like, hey, there's a third thing. Because I was thinking about the concept of paradoxical trinity. And this is the last thing I'm going to say on the Ohio State deal. I heard a story in the paper that, when Ryan Day and Ohio State lost to Michigan again this year, someone told Ryan Day on social media that he should consider doing what his dad did and kill himself. Apparently his father committed suicide, and people were so upset that we lost to Michigan again that this person suggested that he follow in his dad's footsteps. There's something so incredibly wrong and heinous about that. And the fact that through all of that, Ryan Day had the fuel to get through the absolute, I mean, the college football playoffs was a slaughterhouse. I mean, it's Tennessee, Texas, Oregon, and I don't even remember the other team they had to play, but it was a lot. I mean, those are good teams, and they, undoubtedly had a tough time. So I find it really interesting just as a case study. I'm sure more might come out about that. Someday Ryan Day might write a book. But I don't know. I think it's just an interesting thing to think about in terms of greatness. These people who won championships under their own set of circumstances, and just like what's the common thread? But then also there's so many things that make them so different. It almost doesn't make sense. Some of the things Urban Meyer did, you think wouldn't be conducive to winning a championship, but he did, and he did it well. He did it not only at Ohio State, he also did it at Florida. So winners win, and it kind of suggests that you don't necessarily have to be a good guy to win, but you could be. And it's important to remember you don't have to stoop down to a level you're not comfortable with just to win. Maybe just replan, refocus, and come up with a better strategy. That's enough about the Buckeyes and a little bit somber note. On a less somber note, I am someone who has been on Instagram for over 4,000 days. That's about 11 years. Crazy to think. Don't ask me how I found out about this, but I went back. I just was curious about when I had joined Instagram, and it was tax day, April 15th in 2014. That was right before I graduated from Harvard. 2 months before, to be exact, or a month before. So, Instagram has been a massive part of my life, just in terms of like where I keep in touch with friends, sending memes, posting, and like people I don't even speak to on Instagram tell me in person that they saw something I posted and it inspired them, or a family member, that's how they keep tabs on me, because they're busy with their life, but they like to see what I'm up to. So a lot of encouragement from a very small set of people. I got, like 1,500 followers on there, and of those people, and there's probably about 10% of that, 150 people that like really follow, really kind of keep in touch. And I've thought about this before. I've always just been curious, but I really wonder, what would life be like without Instagram? And I say that because unconsciously, kind of in the way I excluded Ryan Day from the Ohio State conversation, I realize that it has informed, it's been helpful. It started relationships for me, including romantic ones. It's maintained them, it's hurt them, it's you name it. It's affected them, both negatively and positively. And I think in ways, the universe or God or spirit has found ways to work through things like social media and other technologies to connect us to our life path. Again, we meet people, we see, cool concert, you end up going, there's advertising on there, there's people sharing things, and, people get recipes, which informs their body, like they literally make food because of something they saw, and then that's how their body is going to rebuild itself. Like, super powerful stuff. If you think about the impact social media has. But because of that degree of separation, because of that screen, I think there's a layer of negativity that's unavoidable. Like, unless you meet someone on social media and then you go meet them in person, and you kind of have the same vibe. Like, you can meet someone online and then the vibe in person is not the same, and vice versa. Yeah, I don't know how ultimately helpful it is. Like, if the ends justify the means, or the means justify the ends in this case. So I just am abundantly curious, if I just hop off of social media, I don't think I'm going to miss it. I think it is a tool for good. But I also think, maybe in a couple weeks I'll hop back on, see if anyone's DM'd me, and then reach out to those people directly through text or calls, and just kind of tell them, like, hey, if you need me, shoot me a text or a call instead of Instagram. Like, I'm not going to be on there. Because I don't want to lose the good part of it, which is connecting, keeping in touch. But I think it could be a crutch. It could be kind of a lazy way to keep in touch. You just assume people will do it. I'd like to be more intentional about it myself and invite others to do that with me, and just kind of see what happens and live my life more presently. Maybe even take pictures with my phone. Like, I actually do this a lot. I take pictures that I never post, but take pictures just for me, just to keep. Because sometimes I'll even take a picture and think, oh, I'll save that to post later. And then, you either do or don't. But, like, just taking a picture just because I want to in that moment, just to have it on my phone, not necessarily for, any purpose other than that itself. But I'm rambling on and on about social media because I noticed a link between social media and romantic relationships, especially. And I think over the last basically 11, 12 years, I've been in the process of learning very important lessons about love and romance. I think romance is like romantic engagements, relationships, whatever word you want to put on it, situationships. You got a lot of words for describing how people relate now. But more and more lately, they all kind of there's a distance. And I guess what I was talking about with social media is, I don't know if it's contributing to that distance, if there's other factors in real life that are contributing to the real life distance. But it's a distance that bothers me. It's a distance that I want to explore to see if I can find a way to maybe naturally invite closeness back into the way we live, into our society, into our world. So for romantic relationships especially, and there's probably a friendship, platonic equivalent to that in some level. I just realized that for a long time I'd thought about the connection between love and then like physicality. So a lot of people just go straight to sex, but I think physicality is something different. It's someone that when you get in the presence of them, because this could be a platonic friend too, you get in the presence of them, your nervous system gets excited. So it's not necessarily sexual, but it could be if it was a romantic partner. So I think there's, again, a physical part, and then the love is just like basically an admiration for that person above and beyond others. Because let's face it, in life, you're not going to like everyone. Not everyone's going to like you. Again, that tension kind of is like why we're all here. So like navigate that tension. I think learn how to do it with grace. Learn how to enjoy our preferences while also not blowing up anyone else's, like letting everyone live their own life in their own pocket, having kind of peaceful cohorts of human beings that maybe live different ways, and that's okay, you know. Just find your tribe and then be friends with the other tribe, but let them do their weird shit over there. I think that's pretty fair. And for the longest time, I thought about what I now have learned is the physical part, being your nervous system being excited in the presence of someone else, is called limbic resonance, from what I understand. I've learned about this recently. I'm still learning, but it's basically like your brainstem responds to the electromagnetic field of another person. So your heart makes this electromagnetic field. It affects the particles, the air, the water, everything around us. And a person feels that, and someone emitting a similar frequency is going to respond to you well. And when you get together, you're both going to be excited. And that's something that happens. It's something that I've really relied on through my own kind of healing process. When I meet someone and I really vibe with them, I go hard, like we're friends and like we're locked in, and we're doing this and we're having fun and making the best out of life, because that's what we're here to do. So yeah, you have that limbic resonance, and then you have love, which again is like admiration of someone. It could be that they remind you of yourself. It could be that they have some trait that you wish you had, and you're pumped that they have it. So it's kind of like supportive in that way too. Just like what your ideal is, whether you have those traits or not, you just see that in another person you admire, and you're just like, hey man, I love you. Or hey girl, like whoever it may be, whatever their gender may be, if they're admirable, you're pumped that they're here. So that was kind of what I was operating off of for a long time. And when you look at modern dating, a lot of people will kind of fake, they'll either have partial limbic resonance or they'll fake it just to get sex or some kind of physical favor or whatever. And you have some people that will love you, but for whatever reason can't be physical with you. So it's, sex without love or love without sex. And I was like, kind of like noticing these ideas. I had really good people. I've had friends that were like so loving toward me, and it felt like it could be a romantic thing, but for some reason or another, like in their mind or heart, like they just couldn't get there themselves to open up that physical side. Maybe the physical side scared them, or I have no idea what was going on with them, but for one reason or another, it just didn't happen. The fact is, like, you see those people who are best friends, and it's like, they should just kiss, they should get together, and it doesn't happen. And then the opposite being true of, you see it all the time. You're feeling lonely and you just want someone to come over, and you go to the bar and get drinks, and it's like, hey, we're both lonely, let's just do this thing. And it's like loveless physical connection that ultimately really isn't that exciting. No one's ultimately that aroused. Maybe the guy can't get it up, or the lady has the lady equivalent of that, and that's really sad too. Like, both instances of that are sad, and I've been really lucky in my life to have good physical connections, like limbic resonance, but there's been times where I haven't had the accompanying love, and I kind of wanted it to be there, but as bad as you want it, like sometimes you just don't love someone on that level the way that you think you do, or the way that you wish you would. You see someone who's like worthy of it, and you're just like, damn, they're worthy, but like, this isn't my person. And being mature enough to like let the physical connection go and just let them know, like, hey, you need to be able to find the person that loves you. that's something I struggled with, and the opposite also being true of, loving someone and being frustrated when the physical part wasn't really natural either. And that's a good word for it, is it has to be natural. So in the last 2 years, I've seen someone that I finally found someone that I had that limbic resonance with, incredible physical connection, nervous systems really aligned, and someone that I believe that I was in love with, genuinely admired, and they genuinely admired me. I believe that wholeheartedly. And I've seen all of that expressed over a decently long period of time. There's a good amount of data. And through that, once again, I have this dichotomy, this tension between love and physicality, the mental and the physical. And I've just come back to this spiritual aspect, this third aspect that I was missing, that maybe I was ignoring it because it's the most difficult one for me to understand personally. Who knows? At this point, again, you got to leave space for the mystery and a paradox. But I've come to understand that there's a third piece that is devotion. And devotion is love when it's not convenient, when it doesn't make any sense logically, and when it hurts, when you're experiencing a lot of pain because someone that you love and are have limbic resonance with just can't quite figure it out for themselves. They're it seems like all the pieces are there and it just doesn't happen. It's not going well. There's just a little bit of that connection just missing. It's inexplainable. There's no good logical reason why it's happening. It just is. And it's for someone like me who is missing that part of the puzzle, that perspective for so long, it's very frustrating to go through. But it also has forced me to gain this new perspective of devotion. So devotion can be spiritual towards a religion or some type of way of life or understanding the universe. But it also can be towards a person. It can be, loving them through their worst moments. You see it in marriages. Somebody cheats on someone, you're married with kids. You got to dig deep and find a way to execute your duties, regardless of if the marriage continues or not, if divorce happens or not. You got to be devoted to that person and your children in a way where you can just do your job. And even though everything feels terrible, you might feel like you're dying on the inside, everything feels wrong. Again, it's just not logical or reasonable or fair, for that matter. And because of all that, that's almost why it makes sense. That's the only thing that explains feeling so terrible when something should feel so right on paper. It feels terrible, and it's again, it's inexplainable. And a lot of, I think, romance and love gurus these days, they talk about setting boundaries, and they talk about dealing with this narcissist or this avoidant or this anxious person or whatever. But at the end of the day, the truth is that love, true devotion, is just your love just being unreasonable. The universe, God, spirit, whatever you want to call it, is just calling on you to do something out of the ordinary. I like to use the word extraordinary, going above and beyond what's required of you. And it could be that desire to be there for that person when it doesn't make sense is shaping you into something. It's more about something that you're maybe becoming. It's inviting them to become something. Without that force, maybe they wouldn't be forced to change. In either case, it's changing your life. It's changing their life. In some ways, probably for the better. In some ways, probably for the worse. And that's all caught in the tension, that balance of the paradoxical trinity. So my mental models have been upgraded as a result of this too. And yeah, just being present for all of this, and while also, doing a lot of this emotional work, while also balancing school, making plans for my future, leaving space for the mystery, and leaving space for a miracle. Because that's really what it comes down to. I'm gonna end on this. You can shut down the situation. You can be frustrated. You can hate. You can transform your love into hate. You can do all the typical things that people do when the situation comes up. Or you can be extraordinary. And I think really being extraordinary isn't something that is all that fun. It sounds cool, but it's not all that fun. And ultimately what it entails is sitting in pain and discomfort so that you can leave space for a miracle. It's sacrifice, it's challenge, it's all that kind of wrapped into one bite-sized shit sandwich. But I'll tell you what, I look at Urban Meyer, I look at Jim Tressel, I look at Ryan Day, I look at these successful strategists in the book I'm reading, look at a lot of successful people in life, and at some point they just took a big old bite of that shit sandwich. Whatever their piece was. People appreciate a person that will take their bite of the sandwich, maybe take an extra bite, just because they know someone's not going to. And just sitting with it in your mouth. And swallow it, digest it, whatever. That's alchemy in a nutshell. But and just doing all of that because it's your choice, because you want to try to do something extraordinary, and you're okay. Like, I can tell you for sure, like, I'm doing everything I'm doing right now, being okay with potential failure, and knowing that I'm going to have some kind of opportunity at some point. This is going to make me the best version of myself and make me ready for whatever may come in the future. It's going to be completely unknown. But the version of me that's showing up to those challenges, it's going to be based on the work that I do today. So again, put in the work and leave space for a miracle. That's extraordinary to a T. It's not glamorous, but it is rare. And the more people that choose that path of rarity in this world, I think the better shot we have as a species of surviving and evolving beyond where we have been. Because I think we've been doing a great job so far. And with the right guidance, we can go even further. So that's a lot. Very heavy. We're almost at 40 minutes for today. I rambled on way too much. But Paradoxical Trinity, I could probably talk about this for a long time. I think about it anytime I notice something that has a dichotomy. I try to think, what's that third thing? Two people are talking. The space between them is the third thing. Like, it's so subtle. It's right in front of us. But we don't always think to look. So I challenge you. Could you put a new perspective on something? Some problem you've been wrestling with forever. Is there a third thing you're missing? Think about it. And I'm going to go think about it some more. Until next week, I'll see y'all later.